I was recently talking with a reporter, and as we chatted, I noted that my companion was a little bit out of sorts. When I asked him what the trouble might be, he looked at the ground and shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's nothing, it's comments on my blog." He went on to explain that he had written an article about how technical careers tend to last only about 5 years. And in the process, he had received not dozens, but hundreds, actually well over 1,000, of negative comments who accused him of trying to undermine engineering education. Well, this was a teaching moment. Throughout the world, the reporting class has been reduced to the very young and the very old. The very old are trying to hold on before social media overwhelms them. The very young don't have the life experience that allows them to put a story fully into context. I took a moment to explain the typical arc of a technical career, how that engineers in almost any field only really spend 4 or 5 years doing the dirty work of designing things or working directly with physical entities. After they move out of the design phase, they spend some time as managers, leading teams of people, building things, managing manufacturing processes, and most importantly, building the social connections that allow them to put their career in context. Finally, they move into the stage where they are leaders, where they assemble teams, conceive projects, work with businessmen and political leaders to use technical resources to solve problems for the greater humanity. An engineer can't get to any point on this arc without the technical education. But as you advance up the arc, you generally find that experience is just as important as that initial technical education. At this point, the reporter confessed that he had actually seen that arc, but he hadn't realized what he had observed. Many of his friends were 4 or 5 years out of engineering school and were starting to switch into managerial jobs they wanted rather desperately and were quite pleased to get. From watching those people switch jobs, he had naturally concluded that an engineering degree was not particularly valuable. Well, it's easy to make false assumptions when you can't put something in context. Shortly after that interview, I saw in another Indian newspaper an article about a new kind of engineering education. Engineering education in India is apparently debated in the popular press. It was the kind of article that I've seen before, arguing that technical education is not sufficient for an engineer in the modern society, and that engineering education needs to include more writing, more presentation skills, more contextualization, something I supported strongly, and more critical thinking. To make room for these additional subjects, the author suggested that less mathematics might be taught, as she didn't see how mathematics was particularly useful. Well, again, the problem was one of contextualization. We really have only a very short time to teach new engineers technical skills. Those years in their early 20s, when students can quickly enter a new field and master it. The other skills really require a lifetime and are learned through mentoring, through social structures, through employment, through experience. What has happened, of course, is that we have shattered experience, reducing it to a series of short-term employments, times when you work on a task and then are quickly moved on to another, and you don't build the relationships, you don't get the mentors, you don't get the context that helps you put your own career into context. As a result, you can very much feel like a short-term employee on short-term loan and have no idea how to move yourself beyond it. Shortly after being interviewed by the reporter, I had an opportunity to tour an amazing educational facility, a place that trained 14,000 new software engineers at a time, 28,000 a year. As I went through the rooms and the buildings, I wondered how all these new young engineers would get the context they needed to understand their career, how they'd get the information, the ideas, the concepts that allowed them to understand where they were going, the forces that were shaping them, and how to make good decisions about what to do next. Ultimately, of course, that kind of information, that context, is not provided by higher education. It comes from the community, from the elders of the community working with the newer members together to help them understand what they are doing as a whole and how each person moves through the arc of a career in an ordered step. Of course, in recent years, we've seen forces largely that we have helped create, shatter that sense of community and seen pieces of it break off in ways that don't communicate with the same tools that we do. But ultimately, it's the problem we face. We are in a transitional state and must learn again how to pull that community together and how all pieces can help the other make good decisions. We don't want anyone to feel that their career is just a bit of short-term loan. This is David Allen Greer for the Errant hashtag. Take care.